Danger Street issue 1, Tom King writing, Jorge Fornes on the art. So we got a bit of a dream team back together again here. And I had no idea what the concept of this book really was. Like I saw that there was a random grouping of like, you know, C-list characters involved, but that was it. Like that's all I knew. So there's a bookend here, which is it's the Dr. Fate helmet that's telling the story, right? Could speculate about that later, but once we get into the story, we're introduced to like sort of 3 concurrent stories that are going on that are all going to be connected. We have a group of kids who go through Danger Street, the titular Danger Street, they're
known as the Dingbats. That's what they keep getting called.
Yeah.
Throughout the book.
Yeah, so they're those Dingbats, and they're just these 4 youngish kids who are driving an RV they've got. And someone calls the cops on them, and that introduces to another main character that we're following, who they call Lady Cop. Her name's like Eliza or something like that.
Does not want to be called Lady Cop.
No, there's not.
Very disrespectful.
There's not like that at all.
Yeah.
But she comes out and she's like, "Hey, like you can't be driving this on a road. I mean, none of you are old enough to even have a license." And I think one says, "No, technically he's had the test, but he keeps failing." But it's like, look, I'll forget the fact that I'm supposed to give you a $200 ticket for driving without a license, because you need a license to be on the road. Doesn't matter what type of vehicle it is, but. I'll take you to the desert where you wanted to go and do off-road stuff, and it's safe, and I'll come and pick you up later and like escort you with the police car. Look at that. I'm not a regular cop. I'm a cool cop. Yeah, she's nice to them. She's nice. Yeah. She's
well, because she knows that they're not actually causing trouble, right? Like they were trying to keep their heads down and do what was right, and that's what caused them, issues. And better off that they're out riding the ATV in the desert than on the street. So let's just do, which I didn't realize Danger Street was an actual street somewhere in DC. So seeing that when it opened up, I thought was pretty funny.
You mean California?
Yeah. Well, yeah. But like when I hear Danger Street as the title, it had no significance. So the fact that that was the first thing that we see, right? That this clearly has ties to some of these other characters from back in the 70s. Had no idea that was a concept.
Yeah. I mean, this is California, the window in the book.
Yeah, when I said DC, I meant the DC universe. Like.
Okay.
Not the.
I just misheard you. Okay, that
right. Not the capital of the country. Yeah.
Yeah, just that's like I'm a little bit tired. All right.
You're fine.
Anyway, so that sets up that side of the story. You've got them. You've got the Jack Ryder stuff where he's the creeper, of course, and he's taking out criminals in his spare time. But the main crux of his story is that he's like hopefully getting a new show on there. He's meeting with some execs to audition for a new news show where he can be himself and so on. And that leads to kind of a reveal about who the money people are behind this new TV network that he's interviewing for. And then we have a Starman, Metamorpho, and Warlord, who are meeting at a diner, and it turns out that Starman, it's not Starman, Metamorpho has stolen the Dr. Fate helmet, and they're going to use it to summon Darkseid to try and prove to the Justice League that they belong on the Justice League.
Look, I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but it's not a good idea. These 3 yahoos, Darkseid is a Justice League level dude. Like, so them having this idea, I was like, oh, this is going to be great. Because how are they going to mess this up? So just hearing that was their plan, I was like, oh, no. So, yeah. But also it fits in with Metamorpho, right? From what we know about him, Also, I do like that when he floats into the bar or the diner and he's like, I got it. And they're like, well, bring it here. He's like, I'm gas. I can't hold things. I thought that was very funny.
Yeah, no, and there is one page in the middle that teases that Manhunter's been sent after a group of kids, which at the time in the issue, the only group of kids that we've met are the Dingbats. So you're like, well, why would they be hunting them? Obviously, there's another group of kids by the end that are more likely the targets. But yeah, so this all builds up to this tragedy because we have like the kids out in the desert with the ATV. We have the trio of characters in the car going out to somewhere in the desert because they think they'll be alone. And the big stuff that goes down is that it's actually Atlas that pops out angry and like starts fighting them.
Mm-hmm.
And the Starman here gets spooked. And one of the kids from the Dingbats who got off because he was sick and was on his own asked the question, and he ends up turning around and instinctively just firing a blast at him and seemingly kills the kid. So, and I wasn't surprised that it went to like a sort of shocking dark like ending before we got to the end of the book, because it just felt like it was building up to something. It was like everything here's too light and cheery. Like there's a weight to it, don't get me wrong, there was a weight to it because it's a Tom King book and everything feels like there's a heavy tone, but these kids seem too happy, it feels too lighthearted. Tragedy is going to strike, and sure enough, like, you know, they have to call the lady cop and be like, oh god, like, you know, he's dead, come and help please. So, and I'm sure the fact that Atlas was yelling the sky is falling is also relevant to whatever's going on. But the big thing with Jack Ryder is that after he does this interview where he's complaining about crime and complaining about how crime's like a tax on everyone and all that stuff, he ends up going to meet the people who are setting up this new TV network that he's going to potentially be on. And it ends up being a group of kids who are all wearing green, which apparently
the green team.
They're referred to as the Green Team, yes.
Also, the teen billionaires, I remember, I think it was Gail Simone, did one of those DCU books on the Green Team.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, and that's the first time I'm hearing about it. All of these characters, not to sidetrack, but all these characters come from the 70s, and a lot of them have ties to Jack Kirby. And so what we know about Tom King and Jack Kirby, this is going to build, I feel like, to a big thing, bigger than I think we thought. Like, not like crisis level, but I feel like the story is going to be going places with these kind of sea level characters.
It's a really interesting read because I think it's really compelling on its own, even if you don't know who any of these characters are. And I know who some of them are. Like, obviously, I know Metamorpho, I know Jack Ryder, the Creeper, to an extent.
You know,
but
Mikhail Starman, I'm familiar with.
I'm not really familiar with this Starman, but I know I know what Starman is. I'm not super familiar with the Green Team though, so like there's parts of this where I'm like, okay, I get like some of this is what's going on, but I think this group of kids and the lady cop, like, I think it's really wise to start with them because it's like they're new for everyone. These are new characters, no matter who you are, and you get drawn into the story because she's nice to them, even though they're being kind of goofy kids and doing something they're not supposed to be doing, and you're like, okay, you're drawn in, you care a little bit about some characters in the book before we start hitting with the DC like known characters. And you know, they're presenting, and I think one of the things that Tom King's done so well with a lot of these books is that he's taken these like C-list characters and just given them like extra layers of personality, where the humor of like the conversation between Warlord, Metamorpho, and Starman is just, you know, it's amusing, it's witty, it's funny. And, you know, Warlord's just like annoyed to be there because the other two are you know, the Starman's quite nervous, Warlord's Metamorpho's just cracking jokes and being kind of cheesy because that's what he's like. Like you know, it's a good bit of fun. So
sure.
I mean, I don't know how the Jack Ryder stuff factors into it quite yet, but like,
no, but it definitely feels like the Green Team want to use him for his communication, right? So he, you know, the rant he goes on definitely hits a certain side that we've seen, you know, at least in Rorschach, right? That Tom King hit up. And
but I'm thinking in the context of this book, like how it ties into. I mean, thematically, I guess, you know, another main character is a cop, so the idea of him talking about a crime tax being trying to prevent crime and things like that would tie to her a little bit. Right. But I'm assuming that the Creeper stuff, the Jack Ryder stuff, and the Green Team and Manhunter coming after the Green Team, presumably, is going to somehow tie into what else is going on with the sky is falling and, you know, what the trio of characters have accidentally done to this kid. You know, like all of this seems like it's...
Well, yeah, and the whole idea, too, of that it's the Helm of Fate telling the story, but it's telling it like it's a fantasy. And these are all very, you know, I mean, Warlord notwithstanding, these are not fantasy characters. These are all kind of gritty, You know, I don't want to say pulp because they're not pulp, but it's that like 70s-ness of them, like Lady Cop and the Dingbats and Creeper. Like there's just this different like weird edge to them all. And so setting that over, you know, being telling that story through fantasy like typeface and
Yeah, because Fate's helmet keeps referring to like the cop lady as the princess. It keeps referring to the
three princes.
Yeah. So it keeps
the creeper
using...
as an ogre, and he's like and the worst ogres are the ones that you can't tell are ogres.
Oh yeah, he calls him an ogre like 50 times I think, over the course of like the scenes. Yeah.
And then when you get to the green team, he calls them straight out monsters, right? So, you know, I mean, there's just something about that, you know.
Do you think
together.
There's a reveal at some point of who the Fate's helmet's talking to?
Maybe
that seems important. I'm getting the feeling that that's going to be an important detail. Is like, why is he telling this story and who's he telling it to?
Yeah, it would not surprise me if knowing that how much King loves Kirby, if this is some kind of backdoor to Commandy, you know, and maybe Helm's Fate is talking to Commandy, you know, and you know, because Atlas showing up, it feels very much like an OMAC kind of situation.
I mean, the only thing I'd say against that is that the hell, it's not like it's in an unknown location. It's clearly in a bar somewhere. So, you know, it's on a bar top that the helmet's placed at the start before he starts telling the story. So it's definitely not in Commandy times, is what I'm trying to say.
True.
I mean, I'm not saying you're crazy for thinking he's going to factor in somehow, because who knows?
Yeah.
You're right. All these parts feel pretty separate, except the two that come together in this, which is the trio and the kids. But
yeah, you know, now that I look back at the first page, I did forget they were in a bar, and it wasn't just Helm's Fate, because it's taken out of a bowling bag, too. So definitely not Commandy times. Definitely feels like more of that 70s vibe at the same time, too. But yeah, I hope, you know, this definitely felt like a new kind of Tom King story. You know, whereas like with Rorschach, that felt very much of its own. That had some Tom Kingness to it. This definitely feels like more.
There may be a hint on this first page actually, because the bartender says, "Can I get you anything?" He says, "Just a Coke." Now that could just be meaningless, but it could also imply that maybe the character is someone who is an alcoholic or something, or someone who just we know doesn't drink.
Right.
No one's springing to mind, but I'm just, you know.
No.
Given the sort of level of characters we're using here, and one of the things that's so exciting about these Tom King books is, and one of the things that I've really come to enjoy about them is how it's elevating just random characters where, you know, not that like, you know, Adam Strange or Mr. Miracle weren't big deals at a time to a certain audience, but I feel like for a lot of a modern audience, like those characters were elevated insanely by those books. And I think it's going to be hard not to get to the end of this and not think of like the Creeper as a bigger deal because of his inclusion in this. Rorschach's kind of an exception because one, Rorschach himself wasn't in the book, just the idea of him was, and Rorschach was definitely a big character. Like no one's disputing. Yeah. Rorschach's the most popular character from Watchmen, like without a doubt.
Yeah. But I definitely feel like here is that Jack Ryder is the inverse of the Question, right? With the way that he transforms into this, you know, into the Creeper, and you know, and we know that the Question was you know, Rorschach was based off the Question.
Well, he's also the inverse in that he doesn't ask questions. Like he's happy to like just accept what the kids are saying to him so he can get a job. Right. He's like, no, I'll just say fluff and you know, and do my thing.
Yeah. And he's leading that to life too, whereas like the Question did that to, you know, one fed into the other. Where I feel like the Creeper thing is something he tries to hide, you know, because there's that whole scene of him cleaning off his face from all the blood, and you know, very very serial killer-esque, right? So, but yeah, we got the 9-panel grids here too.
It's just not on every page. It's not as consistent, but it's definitely there throughout occasionally. Yeah, Forney's killing it. The art is phenomenal. You know, the expressions are great. There's a lot of personality in a lot of the faces. And Forney is much like Rorschach. It's got that muted kind of vibe to it, where it's not, you know, overly cartoony or anything like that. It's very restrained, and I think that lends itself well to when you do have a 9-panel grid page that's just Jack Ryder doing these like news like audition where he's saying a bunch of stuff, and it's compelling to read because of in part because of the art and because of the facial expressions. So no, I liked it a lot. I mean, it's hard to like gauge like how great it could be after this first issue, but what I can say is I found it compelling, and I was intrigued by what the three guys were up to before they finally had the helmet out and explained, we're calling Darkseid because we're getting the Justice League, and I'm like, you idiots. The build up,
the wanting to get the Justice League thing killed me.
Yeah, the build up to the kids' tragedy and like everything with them and the cop, like I thought was kind of sweet, and again built this like sort of relationship where okay, she's going to have to actually step up and protect them later on, or investigate this and look out for, because and I genuinely don't know where it's going, but I'm intrigued by all the threads that it's kind of laying down, and I think what's fun is that all of these Tom King books, well, there's obviously a kind of a through line that feels like Tom King because we recognize it and we like that in all of them. They all have something that's different each of them, right? Strange Adventures was very different from Mr. Miracle in that it had the two different, stories going at once. Rorschach was this crime thing that was all told in kind of hindsight, and it was sort of doing this investigative thing. This is very different again in that it's doing like different like threads that are going to come together, but this is more like a TV show kind of structure.
Yeah. No, it feels like the scope's a lot bigger than we had, just with this cast of these characters and how they all interact. Like, you're right, it feels like a TV show. So, but it's again, he's really good at these type of things, at these smaller characters, and making us care about them.
Yeah, right? They don't feel small. When you're reading this book, none of them feel small at all.
No. Well, just the fact too, like, Warlord constantly, people talk about how much he's like, he looks like Oliver Queen, and that has a lot to do with Mike Grell. But here, he's distinct on his own. Like, he's definitely his own character, and you wouldn't confuse the two. So again, just those the scenes that you don't know where it's going, right? Like, just when you think you have it figured out, something else happens. Like the kid getting hit, like we knew they were in the same spot, but I had no idea that's where it was going to. So
no. I mean, I could have, if anything, I would have thought Atlas might end up killing a kid, like if he stumbles into them or something. So the fact that it's one of these idiots that did it, and we're going to have to deal with the fallout of that. And does he take responsibility? Do they try and hide it? These are questions. And I don't fancy your chances of getting the Justice League if your attempt, which was stupid in the first place, to prove that you were valuable to the Justice League ends up with you killing an innocent child. Not good. Not looking good on the job interview is all I'm saying. Made a bit of a boo-boo there. So very
definitely irresponsible.
Yeah, but I think the one thing that's mentioned with the Green Team is that they want to spread the word that the outsiders are terrorists, and like that's really important to them. That's like the condition for Jack Ryder getting the job, is that he has to like be willing to like sell that fact. So obviously, at least Metamorpho's an outsider typically. I don't know if any of these other characters are typically outsiders, but that's going to be a thing. So they're hinting at things here as well with that.
Yeah, for sure. I'm trying to think who else would be. I'm trying to think of the 70s era of the outsiders.
Oh god, off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you.
I can't tell you because it's usually just Katana, Black Lightning, Metamorpho, and the Batman. So, I'd have to look up the stories that these are based off of were like these issues that kind of got canceled. It was during the Great Implosion I kept reading about, that DC was just producing way too many books. And so these kind of entered like the cult comic space by, they canceled them all and then took them all and put all the first issues together as like a trade. And then they would sell that trade, and it was like the canceled comics cavalcade, and that's where the Dingbats were introduced and I think there was even Doctor Strange and a Green Team and all of these. And so like it's a deep pull for King to run with, but I wouldn't expect anything else from that. But like Lady Cop, I know had at least 1 or 2 series on her own. You know,
oh, really? I
so,
thought I assumed she was new.
Yeah, no. Lady Cop goes back to the 70s as well. And in fact, her origin was at the time, I feel like one of the first to do that, to where she saw her friends get killed, and then that led to her to become a police officer.
Which there's a tease in the issue of that. There's a moment where she's sort of thinking about her past, and you just see her lying on the floor with blood like over her head. So she was in a traumatic situation.
Yeah, and they're calling it like the wild card killer because he's wearing boots and he compares women to a deck of cards and stuff. And so, but yeah, all of these characters, they were all out at the same time in the 70s where DC kind of imploded. And so they threw them all together in these, and it kind of became like one of those cult things that if you could find this book, it was this treasure trove of just weird characters that DC was taking a chance on. And so like, you have these dingbats who, from what I was reading, the dingbats were meant to be a rival to the Newsboy Legion, and so that's basically their only appearance in continuity. Is there's a thing that happens with Jimmy Olsen and Newsboy Legion and the Danger Street dingbats, and I think that was Jack Kirby as well. So I'm excited to see where this goes, just to see how it pays off with all of these characters. But I definitely feel like like with Lady Cop taking the lead, I think that's real cool because again, that's a character that was around, but not like 1 or 2 series isn't not a lot of history. So for you thinking that she was a new character, I mean, to even a Tom King, whatever he chooses to do with her, it's going to be a new version of that character. So,
well, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of these characters might as well be new. I mean, obviously, I think it's important that they're not, and I feel like there might even be a meta level to this where maybe the idea of like what happened at DC in the 70s is going to be like kind of like not referenced in the text, but referenced in a sort of meta level where thematically it plays into what's going on with the characters in the story and times of change, and maybe the idea that most of these characters are forgotten is going to be like part of the theme as well, of like what they're going through and like this worry of being forgotten or something. I don't know, but
okay. So apparently this was based off of it was called the first issue special, and here are these characters that showed up in the first issue special: Atlas, the Green Team, Metamorpho, Lady Cop, Manhunter, the Dingbats of Danger Street, the Creeper, the Warlord, Dr. Fate, the Outsiders, Codename Assassin, Starman, and the Return of the New Gods. Every single one of those characters is mentioned or shows up in this first issue.
Yeah.
And like Jerry Conway created Starman, the Codename Assassin, and then Jack Kirby is on Manhunter, the Dingbats, Atlas. Joe Simon is the Boy Millionaire. So like, yeah, these all go way, way back. But I think that's really cool. Like, I just found an article that talked that up, and I didn't see this till now. So to know that there's definitely a meta level going on here. That all these characters show up in this first issue, yet they get to go on past that and become, one of Tom King's, things going forward. But yeah, hopefully it gets to some more Jack Kirby type stuff, because I like when King tackles the Kirby aspects. But I'm here just for anything.
I think it'd be interesting if there is more Kirby stuff like that, because it's the art style is so grounded, and it feels like a fairly grounded book, despite the fact that you've got the Creeper running around. It feels relatively grounded, kind of like Rorschach. So I'll be kind of curious to see how it balances that tone with everything else. But no, really good. Like everything's really intriguing, and I'm sort of hooked in. What are you rating Danger Street issue 1, Matt?
I'm gonna give this a 9.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to go with 8.5 for this first issue. I really, really liked it, and I'm intrigued. But I'll just say that it wasn't like a complete home run, like say issue 1 of a couple of the other books, And part of that is, I think, because it is a bit more ambitious and it's like dealing with all these different plot threads. I think as we get more and I can sort of see them how they're tying together, I think it will be quite exciting once we go down that path. But so I'll go a little bit lower and say 8.5. But obviously the art's fantastic, and
Yeah.
there's so much potential in the story. So